Hi everybody, this is Lainey from Hilltop Home Place. I promised you a video to go over the cost of what it actually cost us to move to this property. I'm not talking about the cost of selling our home as far as commissions and fixing things up there or anything. I'm just talking about the cost to buy our land, buy this mobile home. You'll hear me call it a trailer throughout the video, and I apologize for that. That's just my lingo. I've always called them trailers. But to set this home up, and to get all the systems in place and other little things that you may not think about. And I'm going to start by briefly, if I can, explaining why we sold our home, why we chose to get a trailer instead of building something else or getting a tiny home or different things like that. And then once we decided to get a trailer on this property, why we decided to just go ahead and buy a new one instead of refurbishing one or something. And then I'm gonna just give you the cost of everything. I debated telling you what we paid for the land or we paid for the mobile home because it gets private and stuff, and it's not even something I've really discussed with my family, or people just do what you do. We don't go around asking each other all the time what you paid for this house or what you paid for this land. But as I was kind of thinking about this and going through all my notes, I really just thought that if I could put this in the perspective of a total package, and this is our total package, I want to emphasize that that's the way you have to think when you're looking at what you're going to do. You have to look at the total package. You might get a great price on land, and you might decide you're going to refurbish a trailer, but what is your total package? What can your family handle? What are you getting out of the home you're selling if you're moving out of a subdivision into rural land? What are you getting out of that house? Do you have this pile of equity and that's all you have? Do you have other resources? You might want to have other resources. You might even want to think about retirement funds and things like that, because in the end, you may have to take out of those to finish something you don't maybe want to, but if you don't have in your mind a total package when you're going into this, and it's hard, and I'm not saying I did. I generally knew what our equity was going to be, but until you sell your home and you make every final negotiation, which includes sometimes credits you have to give people on things that are not right at your house that they want a credit on, or they're not going to buy it if this or that. You don't know until the very end of those negotiations exactly what you're going to walk away with. So I generally knew what we were going to walk away with. I was hoping it was more. We ended up having to take less. Well, we lowered the price on the listing to less. We ended up selling at full price for what we were asking, but we had lowered our price on the listing. So, that number bumps down sometimes, and your expectations kind of have to go in line with that. You can't expect the moon. You can't expect 300 acres in a Tennessee Valley if you really can only afford 2 acres somewhere and a mobile home set up on it. I don't want to talk to people like they're dumb or anything like that. I'm just trying to tell you what was going through my mind. I had to get a full picture in my mind so that I kind of stayed on a certain path. And I'm glad I did, because the prices are not cheap. I feel like where I live in South Louisiana, the prices are fairly decent for the work we got done. I hear just horror stories of what people pay in other states sometimes. And especially, we didn't have to dig a well for this property, but I hear like the prices to dig wells in other states and all can be so expensive. And so if you don't really have an idea of those things before you buy the property, don't wait till you buy the property to find it all out. Try to find it out ahead of time. And it'll make your move a lot easier. I want people to do whatever they need to do. I want people to get on a homestead. I want people to get out of the subdivisions if that's what they want to do. By making this video, it was just going through my mind the whole time we were going through this, that people need to know costs. They need to kind of have a reality check with costs, because it's not all about the land. It's not all about just what you decide to live in. What is that final cost going to be for that dream? So everything is different. Everybody's looking for different types of acreage. Everybody might make different decisions on their home. All I can do is tell you what we did. I can tell you whether we're happy with it or not. I can tell you the good and the bad and the ugly. And then you just have to make your own decision based on where you live in your part of the country, your budget, and what works for your family. Because if there's an overarching theme for this video, it's that I had to do what would work for my family. What would work in my family being mostly me and my husband. Our son isn't even living here yet. He's still staying at my sister's because it's closer to his job and to his technical college he goes to. Anyway, he'll eventually transfer over, but right now it's just Richard and I, and I'm realizing every day that I did the right thing. I did the right thing. Anybody that watches my videos knows, and I'm just briefly saying this for anybody that hasn't watched one of my videos, my husband had a massive stroke in January of 2021. So it's been 2 years this month, but it left him very debilitated, physically, cognitively, speech, everything. And so our lives have just had to evolve to handle that and to deal with that. So that leads me to my first question is, why did we even move anyway? A lot of people are moving to get into homesteading. That's not why we moved. I had land where I was gardening where I was. I had a tractor. I had a lake that was a good water source if I needed it. I had a sump pump thing that I could pump things to my garden if I needed it. But the reality of the situation with my husband was that he is now on full Social Security disability, and he's on long-term disability because his company carried long-term disability on their employees. He qualified fully for all of it, and so he's getting long-term disability now. But the long-term disability, and anybody that has it as part of their employment needs to understand this, it only pays you until you reach full retirement age, which for my husband is 67. So he's in his late 50s, so we only would have that income to supplement the Social Security for another few years, 7, 8, 9 years or whatever. And so I had to look ahead to realize that if we just kept paying the same bills that we had, which we were managing, if we just kept that up, and I kept that tractor and kept gardening and kept the house note and the homeowner's insurance and all that comes with a house and everything, it's like if we kept all that, at some point the income's gone, but the bills are kind of still there. The tractor would be paid off eventually, but then I'd probably need a car or whatever. So it's like those set of bills would be in place for a long, long time. I wanted to get us debt free. I just don't want a bunch of bills. I don't want them. And we were fortunate enough to have built a nice house on a lake. It's an old gravel dirt pit, bar pit lake, but it turned out very pretty because everybody around it built around it. It was three houses around it. We all took care of our properties. Everybody had pretty looking houses. And so we were able to sell it. And the prices of land where we live were going up because people were migrating towards rural areas. So the prices had went up, and we were able to sell it and make enough money off of it to pay cash for our mobile home and to pay cash for this property, and still had enough to get all the systems in place for this property. Pretty much. A little bit of that came out of pocket, but pretty much. So we were blessed. And it's blessed, yes. We also just made some good decisions in our life. When we saw that land in the beginning, I mean, we had friends that were like, oh my God, this is horrible looking. But we could see what it would do. My husband worked in dirt work and things like that. And he did a lot of grading out and adding, spreading out clay soil to give us a better piece of property. And by the time we moved, it was a very nice piece of property. And so you do things like that. You work. Sometimes, you're able to reap the benefits. So without touching any of our retirement funds that he had from working all those years, without really completely wiping out our savings, we were able to take the money off the house and get this. Now, that brings me to another point of why wouldn't we just kind of save a lot of that money and buy something cheaper, like a used mobile home or a tiny home, or some people just live in a really nice camper on some property and bank the money. There's lots of reasons. Well, and we even could have maybe built a little house and not lived in a mobile home, but built a little house. Um, there's lots of reasons. Number one, I go back to my husband. We can't live in a little tiny home. We can't live in a camper. I guess you technically could somehow, but it would be miserable. It would be miserable. He already has restricted freedom of movement. I would not want to cram him in a little tight space where he couldn't even get around very well. Bathing and all that kind of stuff. That's all just forefront in my mind for our lives. So I had to just go with it. And we needed more space than a tiny home or a camper would involve. A used trailer. It's me. Now, I do have people come help me with things every now and then. And I would have had some money to help pay carpenters and stuff like that. But basically, you know, if you're going to be fixing up a mobile home over months and months and months, it falls on the homeowner to do a lot of that stuff. I can do things and I'm handy and I've tried to be part of everything going on around here, but I don't want to take on a full remodel job of a mobile home by myself. It's exhausting. I already have enough going on in my life that exhausts me physically and stuff. So no, I don't want to do that. And also, just practically speaking, when you go into something where you're buying, say, a mobile home and you're bringing it to your property, your mobile home might cost $10,000 and you might have got a great deal on it, but that's not the end of it. Now you're paying for private movers now to move it. What does that cost? When I bought this mobile home new, the moving came with the package. So if you buy something used, you're now paying for movers. What are their warranties? What are their guarantees? What if the thing falls off in the middle of the road? You know, what do they have insurance? Do you need to have insurance? What is behind those walls? What is under those floors? How old is that hot water heater? Are your sinks still any good? Are your faucets still any good? There's just a lot of unknowns. And you start peeling back layers of a used mobile home or something like that, you're going to find problems. I don't want to start off this phase of our life going into our 60s here shortly with a lot of issues to deal with. Just ongoing repairs, maintenance. For us, for our situation, I just wanted to buy something new. Start off new with a new mobile home. That being said, I had a budget, and I found when I walked into the mobile home places, they just wanted to know, well, what's your budget? And then they quote you prices. They don't necessarily have a sticker on the mobile home like they do on cars when you go looking for cars. Even though you can negotiate those price of cars, at least you have a baseline. Well, they didn't have prices on all the mobile homes. And I found out the reason is because once they get a sense of you and your budget and whether you have money to spend, whether you're broke and you're going to be financing and things like that. And I actually think you pay more if you're going to be financing a lot of times because they know you're really just worried about what your note's going to be. So the price of that trailer can stay whatever it needs to be as long as your note and you're happy with your note. That's one thing I've kind of figured out in this world. And so I looked at this exact mobile home. I decided on a Sunshine mobile home. They make lots of different models, but I decided on this 500 series because it seemed to work better for my husband as far as getting around the shower and all that stuff. And so I decided on the Sunshine 500 model series. I've discussed in another video, the Sunshine mobile homes, and I'm not doing a commercial for them. I'm just telling you this is why I chose to buy it, was because they frame out the exterior walls with 6-inch studs, 2x6s, whereas a lot of mobile homes are just 2x4s. Sometimes, I guess maybe there's codes now, but when I was involved helping with a veterans group and we helped remodel some roofs and different things for mobile homes, I was shocked. I was shocked at the framing on some of those mobile homes. Some of it was literally 1x2s framing out the roofs and the joists in mobile homes. I was shocked. So I did not want anything like that. So I did my research and I found out that the Sunshine homes were the best wind rated homes. And in South Louisiana, we get hurricanes everybody gets bad weather and thunderstorms, but we also get hurricanes. So one came through last year, and this area got hit extremely hard where I live now. I'm curious to know how my mobile home would have done in that, but we weren't here then. So, but a tornadic system buried inside the hurricane came right through this area. But anyway, so I wanted certain things. I love the fact when you compare an apples to oranges and you're walking through their models that have the wallpaper walls versus the textured sheetrock walls. I just love the textured sheetrock walls. I don't feel like I'm in a trailer or a mobile home. I feel like I'm in a house. And everybody that comes in says the same thing. They're like, oh, this is like you're in a house. and I like that. It just makes me feel like I'm in a house. And I wanted my vents in the ceiling. And anyway, some things like that technically are extras, but I ended up getting a better price on the mobile home than I thought. And so that all worked out. But before I tell you I'm going to tell you the exact what we paid for the mobile home. But before I do, I also wanted to say, when you're talking about building, I had several of our friends, I guess they hear mobile home and they just think you're going to not be living in a great place. So they were kind of worried about us, I guess. And they were like, why don't y'all build? Yeah, just build your little house, even if it's not big, just build. Don't live in a mobile home, you know? And let me tell you, I wanted to get debt free. Yes, we might could have built something and gotten debt free, but it's right now in this environment, building is very open-ended. It's very open-ended. This mobile home, while they didn't have a price on it, I ended up getting a price. So I knew what the price was. When you go to build these days, and my daughter and son-in-law just abandoned the idea of building and they went ahead and just bought a pre-existing home because of this, is the builders, first of all, they're bidding high. Then they're telling you their bids are only good for 2 weeks or a month because they can't guarantee what the cost of product is going to be after that, materials. So if you're, and also sometimes they're 6 months out before they can get to your house. So if you're 6 months out and your builder's saying my bid's good for 30 days, we're going to have to reassess when it's time to start framing your home, you don't really know what the price of that's going to be. And so I didn't want to deal with that. I didn't want to have to live somewhere for a year, because if they're 6 months being able to get to me, and I had a builder come here to kind of see if we wanted to build onto this property. And I was talking to him and I said, well, if we do decide to build, when could you start? And he said, well, I can't get to you for 6 months, but I'll get to you, you know. So, okay, for 6 months, we have no place to live and we would have to rent or somewhere. And then our house would take up to 6 months or so to build. So we're a year paying expenses that are just going down a toilet because we're not in our home yet. So I didn't want to do that either. And you have to think about all that stuff too. What is the true cost of building? This mobile home, I'm making myself call it a mobile home. This mobile home is 1,800 square feet. It's actually smaller than a lot of the models, but for us, 1,800 square feet is almost more than we need. But for what we paid for it, had we taken that same exact money and built a home, we would have gotten a home about 1,000 square feet. And I ran the numbers, and 1,000 square feet's being generous. It just, the cost of building right now, even in South Louisiana, we're not New York City, we're not, you know, but even down here is $160 to $200 a square foot, depending on your trim outs and everything, and what you want, your finishes, I guess I would say. So if you took the same amount of money and tried to build a house here, we would have had a little 1,000 square foot house that I just don't think would service our basic needs. It would. But for a house that we're going to live in for hopefully many, many years to come, I don't think so. So we decided to go ahead and do this. The costs of keeping yourself somewhere and eating and everything else while you're in limbo can be a lot. We found that out because when we sold our other home, our daughter and them had told us that we could come stay with them, but they were in the process of closing on the home they were buying. So for a week, we had to stay in a hotel. it was $877, the bill for that hotel for 1 week. And then we had to eat out every meal while we were there. So we were $1,000 to $1,100 out in a 1 week of just staying in a hotel until we could move in with them. So when you're going to be kind of homeless for a year, you got to do something. If you don't have someone to move into for free, and it's really not free because you need to contribute, you need to buy all the groceries, pay them some rent, do something. You know, I gave my daughter and them some money when we were living there, and I helped buy as many of the groceries as we could. I kept the refrigerator stocked with breakfast foods, you know, so it's not free. You do help out and stuff. So nowhere's really truly free. So, but you have to do something. So add up those costs when you're thinking about it too, because those costs are just as real as the cost of your land or whatever structure you decide to put on it. Okay, so I think I've covered everything that's on my whole first sheet. Okay, our land, we rode around for a couple of months looking for property or a house, whatever, but pretty much property because we really couldn't put a bid on a house with ours not even being on the market at the time. But we had started looking last summer, and we rode up on this 2 acres on July 4th last year, and it's an exact square almost. It's just a plot of land that's 2 acres, and it was $49,900. We jumped at it. Now that's $25,000 an acre, but if that's how you're looking at it, you miss the whole picture. First of all, when you do buy a little small 1 and 2 or 3 acre pieces of property, you usually do pay more per acre than your average price per acre in your area. A lot of the price per acre figures you see are for like bigger tracts of land that are just divided out the big old price into a price per acre. When you're buying a smaller piece of property, sometimes you're paying up. However, this piece is rural, but yet not too far from a little town, and then not too far from the interstate. And then there's other bigger towns down the interstate. So there's always what we need. It's not that far away, whether you need grocery stores or whether you need lumber yards, our banks. I'm actually closer to my banks here than I was at my other house. And so closer to the post office, closer to everything. So it's just a great location for us. But it still feels so rural, and I love it. We absolutely love the property. We just love the looks of it. We loved everything about it when we found it. It also had a carport that's covered, like a little pavilion that was already here. So we didn't have to spend any money to ever cover our cars or build any kind of carport. We don't have a garage, but we don't really need a garage. We never really had a garage anyway. The driveway was already here. We do need to add some more rocks to it because it was an older rock driveway, and those rocks are kind of pushed down in the ground. But they do form a base that still makes it where we can get in and out without sinking or getting in mud or anything. And we're gonna, our friend actually offered, he lives on an old gravel pit too, and he actually offered to haul us some sand and pea gravel rocks up here and put on our property. So, and it's gonna be for free. So I'm excited about that. So he's gonna do that shortly. But we already had the driveway in place. We already had a culvert, no expense there. We actually even had a mailbox already across the street. Didn't even have to buy a mailbox. We did have to buy some letters and numbers. I'll go over that in just a little while. And our parish wants you to have your numbers on your house and everything. So we had to buy that. But $49,900, it was about $1,000 in closing costs. So we're $50,900 into this piece of property. We were able to pay cash for it at the time, and then kind of got the money back out of it once we closed our house. Also, if you'll remember, this land used to have a big double wide mobile home on it. It was about 72 feet long. It was a lot bigger than ours. And so they had little concrete strips all along this area next to the pavilion, to where when you go to block your mobile home and you go to level it and all, you're not doing it on dirt, you're doing it on the concrete. So that helps a lot. It helps keep your mobile home stable and level. It doesn't really shift through the years too much. And theoretically, I guess you would say. And so that was a blessing because it was already there. We didn't have to do anything like that, and we didn't have to worry later that our mobile home would shift. We did live in a 14 by 52 mobile home right when we got married, and that was a problem we had because your doors would shut good and then they wouldn't. And things, you know, in that little trailer, you could always tell they were cattywampus because it was shifting. So that helps a lot that we had those concrete pads there. Also, our house already had a meter pole. It had electricity running from the highway back to another pole that's kind of, we call it a booger light on it. It's got a light that lights up at night from the electric company. And then the light from the booger light pole ran to our meter pole behind our house. So it's not in front of our house or in our way or anything. And there was a meter pan there. I'm going to get to a little point about that in a minute that did add some cost. But we at least had the electricity running from the road to the meter pole. We also had water running from the highway. It's buried across of our property and it comes up behind our property, just right behind our mobile home. We're really at the corner of it. And so the water line was already there. So those are things that didn't cost us a lot of money. They might cost you money if you go to do it. So you always need to be aware of those kind of things. When you take that $49.99 price though, and you start telling yourself, I don't have to put in a driveway. I don't have to have someone come clear a bunch of trees. I don't have to run a water line from the highway. I don't have to run electricity from the highway. I don't, you know, on and on and on. When you start saying that, that $49.99 starts looking better and better as far as cost. I don't have to pour a carport. I don't have to cover that carport. Let it hail tonight. My car is going to be okay. It's going to be okay under that carport, you know. So when you start deducting all that, the $49.99 looks a lot better. And one other thing that made it look better, it was a little bit of a problem for me in the beginning, but the 18-wheeler container that sits on the very side of our property near a fence. It's out of our way. It's not ugly when you pull in the property or anything, but there's an 18-wheeler container there that has a big metal lean-to roof on it. The metal lean-to roof is huge underneath. We've got our dog pen under there right now, and we'll be able to park anything we need to park under there, put things on. You could really just clear it out and have a big crawfish bowl under there or something. It's a very nice little entertaining area. I do have to get the holes fixed where the little screw holes leak water on that metal roof, but that's another day. And once I get that done, it's really going to be a nice little area out there. Well, the 18-wheeler container is 8 foot wide and it's 48 foot long. So that's 380 size, like almost a little less than 400 square feet of a storage shed that we didn't have to build. I did have to clean it out. It did have a little roach problem. It did have a couple of leaks in the roof, but we fixed those. We patched them with metal. We put tar up there. They're fixed. They're good. Haven't seen any water coming into it since then. The roach problem, we cleaned out everything that was there. We fogged it, and every now and then, I haven't really seen anything, but I still set a fogger off every now and then. I want those roaches to know they are not welcome to come back to that 18-wheeler container. But it's been nice because I do use it. I do walk out there and get stuff out of it. And it's like a free storage shed. I mean, we didn't have to pay to build it. We didn't have to go buy one at Home Depot and haul out here to store our stuff in. And so, boom, within a day or so, we had it cleaned out and I was storing stuff in it. So that also makes that $49.99 price come down a little bit. So that's great. For us, it was a wonderful price. We had looked and looked and looked. And believe me, when we rolled up on this and when we called the realtor and found out the price and everything, it was just a no-brainer. We put in an offer extremely quick. We got it, and I have not looked back. I know that the value is there in this property. Our trailer, da-da-da. I don't mean to tease. I really don't. I just kind of want to lay it out in a certain way to where it all makes sense. And I'm just getting to this part. Okay, the trailer itself is 1,800 square feet. It's a double wide. We went to different places looking at this same trailer. The first place hardly would give me a quote, but when they finally did, they quoted me $252,000 for this trailer. I said, no, thank you. I said, I'm not paying $252,000 for a trailer. And she said, well, what if we knock $25,000 off? I was like, well, number one, you should have just gave me the price with the $25,000 off if you could do it that easily. Number two, that's still $227,000. No, thank you. So no way. There's just, I had heard double wides had went up in value, and we're talking about an environment right now where used trucks are selling for double what they used to be worth. So I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble. If mobile homes cost this much, I'm in trouble. We will build. We will just take a chance and build. But I went to another place in Macomb, Mississippi, and looked at the exact same home, and she quoted me $176. And compared to the $252, $227, that looked great, but I wasn't ready to buy yet because I really didn't have a contract on my house at the time. So we just kind of kept looking around. We decided to go to Prairieville, Louisiana, and I walked into this same model. They all look alike, no matter whose lot you're on. And I walked into this same model, and I just told the guy, I said, look, can you just quote me a price? Because a lot of people want to call me back later and all this stuff. I said, I just need to know what the price is. I'll be able to get it or we won't. And he said, oh, I can tell you what the price is. He said, this model we sell for $159,900. And I said, I'll take it. I just said, what does that include? Because I'm thinking that it sounds like a high price when you're talking about trailers or mobile homes, but I was looking at single wides that were $100,000. They're not cheap anymore. A new mobile home is just not really cheap. Some of them would be on sale for $88,000, $89,000, but they already had things looking wrong with them before they pulled them off the lot, and they weren't made well. For a Sunshine mobile home, I'm sorry to keep mentioning that name, but it is a manufacturer's thing. They are one of the best rated mobile homes. For a Sunshine 1,800 square foot mobile home, $159,900 was a fantastic price. And it was in our budget. So I told him, I'll take it. And what you need to know, and I wrote this down. Well, let me say this first. What that includes is it includes you buying the mobile home. They bring it to where you live. They anchor it with the tie downs. They block it with all the cinder blocks and everything, and they level it for you. It also includes an air conditioner unit, which they come back and install later. It includes all the appliances. These Sunshine mobile homes include all your appliances. So I have a refrigerator, a dishwasher, a stove, and a microwave that were included in my kitchen. They're all brand new and they're all under warranty right now. So that was a good thing because we had to let some of that go with our other home. And what else did they include? Well, it includes 2 sets of steps, but you get them. I've got them out there, but they make you sign something basically saying those steps are just temporary. You need to do something else. So that's really not a big thing. But anyway, so for $159,900, I got all the appliances. It included the air conditioning. I also went ahead and booked with them to come do my skirting. That was $1,850. That was all the supplies for the skirting, and then the man that comes to do it, all the labor or whatever for him. When you do buy a mobile home, you have to pay sales tax. It's variable depending on where you live. I was budgeting thinking that I was going to pay sales tax on the full amount. But what I found out when I was going to buy this was you only pay sales tax on a certain amount. I think in Louisiana, it was like you paid sales tax on about 42% of the value of the trailer. So sales tax was actually less than I thought. But if you add the sales tax of $7,700 in there, the total cost and the skirting, the total cost of my trailer as a line item on the sheet that from my closing and all was $170,024, so $170,025. So can seem like a lot of money, and I struggle to even tell people what it cost, but I do want to just kind of give you a complete picture, and I just couldn't figure out how to do that without just telling you what it cost. $170,000 sounds like a lot, but at least it is what it is. I know what it cost this is what it cost on the sheet they gave me. That's what I paid. I'm done. I'm not Our Lady of Perpetual Repairs. You know, I'm not sitting here fixing up a double wide or a single wide for years to come. It's over for me. It's here. It's set. It was a little bit of a journey getting it all ready so I could move in, but it's done. And I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. If I took that same money and tried to go, if you add that with what we paid for the land, let me say that, if you add that with what we paid for the land, we would be total package of $220,924. $220,924. Okay, you have to evaluate what it was in the beginning you wanted. We wanted less land because I'm having to manage all the land. I couldn't manage 14 acres on a lake anymore. So we got less land. We wanted to be debt-free. I was able to pay for it with the funds from our house. We're debt-free. I don't have a house note due at all on this mobile home. If we had financed it, even if it was a cheaper trailer and you had financed it, you would have had interest. You would have had some closing costs and fees and all these kind of things, but we didn't. So I'm happy with it. I do know, you know, a lot of people would say, well, you could have invested some of that money and made gazillions of dollars down the road instead of putting it into a trailer. For us, that's what I wanted to do. For us, I wanted a comfortable, complete place that we could land in within just a few months of selling our home. I did not want to be in a perpetual state of construction, of fixing up, of building. I just couldn't do it. I know what I can handle, and I can handle a lot, but not in the situation I am in now, not in that situation. We wanted to be able to just live within a few months, and we are extremely happy about it. Now, even though I bought a brand new trailer, and even though our lot, our acreage was semi set up for a double wide mobile home, that wasn't the end of it. And let me go over those costs with you, because those costs, I'm calling our common cost. I'm calling that our common cost because we can differ on land prices. We can differ on home prices. We can differ on our goals or what we want. But when it all comes down to it, you still need your systems. And if you're going totally off grid and you're not having electricity, you're not having sewer, then this isn't the video for you. I'm talking to people that are going to need utilities and systems set up. This is what we paid, and we'll just compare and contrast. I would advise you maybe to get out a notebook and watch this video and just write down my figures, and then get your own figures and compare and contrast. I'm going to throw out some questions at the end, just some what ifs. And if any of those what ifs apply to you, then you need to get prices on that kind of stuff. So let me just start, and we'll dig in with some of that stuff in a minute. Okay, so the systems we all have in common, and I just wrote down water, permits, don't forget about permitting, sewer, electrical, and plumbing. So let me tell you what our water cost us here. I explained to you before, we already had city water running from the highway to our trailer. So we didn't have to pay for any installation of pipe or anything like that. I did have to go to the water company and pay $200 for connection fees or whatever it is they call it. And then I did that right when we moved here because we needed some water on the property for my perk test, for my sewer and all that kind of stuff. So, but we didn't move in right then. So I ended up paying 4 months of bills before we moved in. Luckily, those bills were only $16 a month, but that was $64 that had to come out of our pocket before we moved in. So I'm calling the total cost of our water to get on this property $264. Enjoy that figure because that's the cheapest one. The next thing, let me back up and say, we had city water available. If you're going to be digging a water well, get some information. Get some pricing information for your area. Water well people are kind of hard to find sometimes. They're backed up sometimes. And the price can wildly vary. and it can even go up while they're doing your job, depending on what they run into sometimes. So talk to them about all of that before they even start. At our house that we just sold, we did have a water well system there, and it cost $5,400, I believe, if I remember correctly. The bid we got was less than that, but we had friends in Mississippi who had a water well system, and they advised us to go with a bigger motor because of issues they had had, to go with a bigger motor than the one that was quoted, a bigger tank system, and to go with bigger piping than what they had. So we did. So we upgraded from the original bid. But then when the man came out there, and I don't remember what happened, but we ended up having to pay another $700 or $800 because of some issues he ran into. And we actually did have to dig a long way for water where we were. We were right by a lake, but to get to the natural water source, he ended up having to go farther down than what we thought. So in the end, it ended up costing us around $5,400. That's a lot of money, but that's cheap compared to some other places in the country. So check that out for sure. Ask every question you could think of about a water well. Okay, for permits, wherever you live, it's different. For our parish in Louisiana, we had to have a manufactured home permit, a mover's permit fee, a residential building permit fee, even though we weren't building anything, a residential flood certificate, and a residential sewer permit. The total of all those was $335. So there's not really any other option but to pay the permits because you just have to around here. And the permits that we got, one of the things that they specify is that your trailer has to have skirting on it. So skirting wasn't an option for us. I told you the cost of it and the cost of our trailer, but it really wasn't an option. We could have bought supplies and done it ourselves or something to lower cost, but it wasn't an option. We had to have it. So if you live in a place that doesn't have to have it, that's a line item you can take off. Also, I will say that $335 was cheap for permits for a mobile home. Our house we sold was in this same parish, and the fees when you build a home are much more expensive. Everything you go to do when you're building in this parish, they do it based on square feet. How many square feet are you building? How many square feet of a carport? How many square feet of sheds? And there's 5 or 6 different permits, and it's all based on square footage. I paid about $2,200 for permits when we were building our house. So $335 to me was a bargain for this mobile home. I thought they were going to be doing stuff off of square footage, and it was just going to be a bunch of stuff, but it wasn't. So check wherever you live, because you kind of have to you gotta have to see. People told us, why don't you build? Okay, well, that's fine. And I explained my reasonings for all that. But also you have to look at the fact that, okay, if I did decide to build, one of my line items, which is permits, is going to be higher than the mobile home. So you kind of have to run all those numbers and see side by side which way is better for you. I knew, because we had built before in our parish, I knew what permitting costs to build and everything. I know how it works. I know kind of the timeline. We had worked with a builder. We had built the house, I just didn't really want to go through that again. We had a good experience and everything, but I didn't want to go through it again. And I know that those costs can rack up as well. So I just changed and went a different direction. Okay, the next thing, let's talk about sewers. Sewers can go all different directions too, but this is what we had to do. We had an existing sewer system here that we ended up being able to use. That was another bonus, and I forgot to mention that when I was talking about electricity and water a while ago. We did have a concrete sewer system here, but before we could get that even started of being approved or anything, where we live, they want to make sure that the place you left was in good order before they'll even work with you on approving you for where you're moving to. So before you can get any kind of approval in this parish for your new sewer system, you have to show that the house you're selling is up to snuff. And so we had to have a water inspection. They had to come test our water just to see if our water had E. coli or other bad bacteria in it. They came, took the sample, they take it to a testing site and get it done. That was $100. You had to have someone that was capable come out and inspect your water well. And so we had a guy that came and did that. That was $125 just he has to send in a receipt for the bill and stating that everything was okay. So I sent that in. We had to have our system pumped out, all the sewer and the waste pumped out of it onto a truck, and the truck hauls it away. That was $450. And then you had to have somebody come out and certify your sewer system to make sure you were doing the discharge right, and to make sure the aerator motor that you keep up near your house plugged in to make sure it was working right. So that was $175. So I'm including these costs because it was $850 total, but I'm including it in our cost to get on this house because it had to be done. If you didn't know about that, if you just thought I'm selling my house and I'm walking away at closing, and you didn't know about all this kind of stuff, it would really hit you. They actually wouldn't even let me sell my house till all this was done. So you have to put this in your budget. Your budget for your new place does include sometimes some things to get rid of your old place. And so $850 in environmental quality department fees is part of what I'm including in my cost, because I had to pay it in order for them to come up here and work with us on this sewer system. Okay, so the cost that we had once we got here were better than they could have been, but they still weren't cheap. We had a concrete 20-year-old sewer system here. It was like a concrete, we call them MODAD systems. I'm not sure exactly what you would call this system, but it was a big old concrete system that was buried in the ground. I didn't really want to use it because it was 20-something years old. But the people at the department told me, you'd probably be better off keeping it. They said they never really wear out. And if we can get a new motor put on it, we had to do some different piping because it used to discharge to the people's property behind us. The water would run down a hill towards their pond, and the man didn't want it doing that anymore. And I completely understand that. So instead of piping it there, the only way we could get it approved was we have this 3 sprinkler system line that runs in our yard. And if ever the sewer system gets overflowed with water discharge or whatever, those sprinklers come on and kind of emit it out onto your property. It's the only way we could do it. The only other way we could do it would be to run a line all the way to the highway into those ditches. They actually would approve that. But we have a hill in front of our house, so that doesn't bode well for a slant on your water line to run to the road when you have a hill in front of your house. So that wasn't really an option. And even if we had chosen that, and even if we had decided to trench our entire front of our property to run this water line, they would only let us do it if we put in 1 to 2 sump pumps to push the water to the highway because it was such a long distance. So the cost of doing all that, tearing up our yard, having the wrong slope on the water line anyway, it was too much, too many unknowns. I don't really want a bunch of unknowns in my life, so it was too much. So I said, okay, let's just do what we got to do to get this system done. So that's what we did. And what it cost us was we kept our existing system, but the new sprinkler system, which involved a motor that's buried in our yard out there, that was $2,500. They also had to put an aerator motor up under our trailer that you plug in, and we had to have a plug for that, and that was $300. You keep it plugged in. There's an airline or whatever running to your MODAD system, and that really, it keeps it aerated and keeps the everything moving in there to where it churns and does what it needs to do to be able to discharge. So that was $300. And then we had to pay to have this concrete system pumped out and the waste hauled away, just like we did at the other house. So that was another $450 to have that done. So The total compliance cost just for this property was $3,250. If you add that to what we had to pay at our former home, the $850, it comes out to $4,100 even. Now, $4,100, there again, you have to look at things in perspective. $4,100 is a lot of money, but the $850 was non-negotiable. So that meant we were really dealing with $3,250 for this property. A brand new sewer system easily could cost $4,800 to $6,000, depending on what kind you were putting in, easily, depending on what kind of piping you were doing and everything. The man had told me before he realized we were using the concrete system that it was going to be $4,500 for a new system. He said, and I'll have to come out there and look at everything to see. When at first they were kind of talking about even putting in a leach field and this, that, and the other. And he was going to have to do excavation and digging and filling with rocks and doing things to make a leach field. And that was going to add to my cost. So I was going to be over $5,000 if he did that. So $3,250 actually was the cheapest route I could go. But when you add it to the $850 of getting out of my other house, it comes out to $4,100. So you need to think about things like that. What will it cost me to sell and get out of my current sewer system? And those costs don't come out at closing. Those costs have to be paid up front when you're doing it. So, all right, let's move to electrical. Fun. Because there was a trailer here before, we did have the meter pole and everything. If you don't, find out the cost for meter poles in your area with meters on them. Find out the cost of getting the electricity run from the road to your house, because that could add up. We didn't have to do that. What we did have to pay for was our meter pan. We had one on our pole here. However, it was missing an interior meter cover. And that ended up being just a nightmare. But what I ended up doing, what I had to do, because I couldn't get lights without getting this situation fixed. And I found out you cannot go buy an interior meter cover by itself. You just can't. And so probably mine got stolen by somebody that needed one, because you just can't go find one. But what we had to do was just buy a whole new meter pan, steal the cover out of it, put it in mine to get it inspected so I could get lights cut on. And then I just have a meter pan out in my shed, and we may use that later for something else, but right now it's just out there. But it cost me $317 to get that new meter pan for my particular system. We had to pay the sewer guy, when he was here, $100, because while he was here they had a trencher. So he used his trencher to dig the trench for my electrician to bury all the lines underground, all the conduit and everything. So I took advantage of the fact that the sewer guy was here with a trencher to get that done. It cost $100, but you're going to pay for it somehow. You're going to pay for it whether you have to rent a trencher. You're going to pay your electrician for it if he has to have it done. You're going to pay for it in your own sweat and blood if you have to do it yourself, because our requirements here in our parish make us bury it 3 feet deep. So I would have had to have dealt with getting a 25 foot trench dug that was 3 feet deep. That's deep to be digging a trench. So the $100 was a no-brainer for me. Now, what cost a lot, oh my God, and I was there. It wasn't that my electrician just told me this is what it's going to cost, but he was really getting it cheaper at a warehouse or something. No, I was paying for it at the register, at the electrical, where we got the electrical stuff. The cost of the copper wiring and everything is outrageous. And as I said, I was really only running it from a meter pole about 20 something feet to the house. It does have to do a 90 degree and go up in your house and all. So I'm not going to sit here and say I know exactly how many feet it was, but I don't think it was over 30 altogether. However, the cost of the copper wiring, the conduit, the circuit breaker for my air conditioner. The air conditioner came with the trailer, but you have to pay an electrician to put a circuit breaker on your meter pan box to handle the load of the air conditioner. And also, you have to pay the electrician to put a disconnect box and the wiring for your air conditioner where it's going to go at the end of the trailer. So he did that. He had to buy ground wires, and I'd asked him to put one exterior outlet on my meter pole, just so if I'm in my backyard and need to run a saw or do anything, like especially when we're going to build those porches later or something, I'll have some easily accessible electricity. So, but that doesn't cost that much. But anyway, so there's probably more supplies I'm missing because I didn't have my receipt to look at. But just the cost of that for that short of a distance was $3,500. $3,500. I paid my electrician $800 to do the work. He actually had bid a little bit less than that, but I gladly paid him a little bit more. He was out here on a Saturday getting it done for me so that I could get my lights on. And then he came back later and he put my interior cover on my meter pan so that I could get my lights cut on and everything. So he's a great guy, wonderful person, and I love dealing with him. Anyway, the total for the electricity came to $4,717. That's what it cost me for electricity, which if your job involved a lot more than that, if we would have been building a house, my electrician's bid would have been a lot more than that. It can go $25,000, $30,000 just for electricity to build a house. So you have to weigh all those costs. So $4,717. The last main in common expense that I may have with some of y'all that are doing all this is plumbing. Okay, so the scope of our work was he connected my sewer line to our new home. The sewer people put the sewer in and they stub it out to your trailer, but it's not hooked into your trailer. Your plumber actually does that. So the plumber connected my sewer to my trailer with a big trunk line and everything. He ran the water and vent lines to all the different places they needed to be underneath my trailer. He connected our home to the main water line that runs out to the highway. He put me a main shutoff valve on. And also the air conditioner is free with the trailer again, but your plumber has to put in a P-trap under the heating system for condensation runoff or whatever. So your plumber has to do that. Your electrician has to do a couple of things for the air conditioning system, and your plumber has to do a couple of things. So he put that under the heating system, and he also put me just 2 water faucets on. He called them bibs or whatever, but he put me 2 water faucets on. The amount I had to pay the plumber was $2,100. For all the piping that was under there and all the trunk lines and everything, I actually thought that was a pretty good price. And actually to accommodate my schedule, and because they were busy too, it wasn't just about me, but he was out here doing it at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. And it wasn't even that hot. It was kind of cool that night. It was kind of cold, so I felt bad for him. But they had other jobs. They knew I needed mine done. Instead of bumping me like they could have done, they came out here at 8 o'clock on a Friday night and got it done. I gladly cut them a check for $2,100. I appreciated their work, and I just happen to know them, and they're really good people, so I didn't mind doing that. Okay, so the systems that we have in common were the water, the permits, the sewer, the electrical, and plumbing. The total of all the figures I just gave you for that, I'm also going to add 2 little things to it. It's just little, but I'm going to add it to it. I did a video on how we put the rebar behind our skirting to brace all the skirting. I spent $103 on that. That's with tax. You could do something else. It's not going to be cheaper though. I think that's the cheapest option. Any other option you go to do, if you got to buy lumber and things like that, I think it's going to cost more. But I'm including this because you do need something. So if you're going to be setting up a trailer, you're going to need some type of bracing behind your skirting. So I'm going to include that. And then I'm going to include $40 that I spent on the dryer vent supplies. Your dryer vent pipe comes down from under your washer room or whatever, but you have to run piping, and then you have to attach a vent with a little lint trap on the outside of your skirting to vent your dryer outside. You don't want it just perpetually going under your trailer and causing condensation, and you can end up with some big problems. You have to vent it outside. So that's a cost you have to do. So that was $40 for those supplies, and I did that myself. So the total cost for all the things that I feel like I would have in common with other people was $11,659. $11,659. That's a big figure. That's a big figure. Now I'm going to add to it. I'm going to add to it. I'm going to just be completely honest with you and tell you about things that we had to buy and spend money on that didn't have anything to do with our regular systems. You could just ditch everything I'm fixing to say, but I just want to point out that it was expenses. And if any of these apply to you, you may want to put them in your budget and make a line item for them in your budget, because they could come up. Let me just go over them. Some of them are more pertinent than others, but I just want to be honest with you about where some of our money was just flying. It was just flying. It was flying out of our checkbook the whole time we were doing this. For 2 months, it's just flying out. So here's where some of it went. The 18-wheeler was in good shape. My friend came and fixed the leaks in the roof, so that was free. Well, I say it was free. I had to buy a little bit of that metal stuff, flashing. I did buy a little bit of flashing. I actually forgot about that, so I didn't put that in here anywhere. But anyway, but we did have to deck the floor with plywood because of the water leaks. The floor had been compromised, and I didn't want anybody getting hurt in that 18-wheeler. So the plywood to deck the floor in the 18-wheeler was $321.96. And you might say, well, that just applies to your 18-wheeler. I don't worry about that. However, you do have to think about where you're going to put your stuff. When you get in wherever you're moving, while you're in transition, where's your lawnmower? Where's your pressure washer? Where is everything going to be? So you may end up with more expenses than what I had. I had to buy a dog pen and some supplies just to secure it and everything. That was $600. Hey, I hate spending money like that. I could have built a dog pen cheaper or something. My time was just, we had to get the dogs moved up here. I needed to kind of get the dogs up here while the house had people around it looking at it and stuff. So we just had to do what we had to do. And I don't regret it. I actually like the pen. It's working out really good. So that was $600. We had to put our stuff in storage units while we were in transition. I got a good deal on I paid for the end of October, and they gave me November free. But since we weren't in the trailer, it rolled into December, so I did have to pay for December. So altogether, for what I paid in October and December, it was $491. So that's just an expense you may have. Some people may have their stuff in storage for 6 months to a year, so you need to really think about that. I had to buy me a wheelbarrow just to help me move things around our property. I've been using it every day to move my miter saw and all between my storage shed and where I'm working on the ramp and stuff. Anyway, that was $95. I'm just putting that in there because it was just an expense that it was kind of needed for me. Okay, I'm gonna throw this one out, and this is something you may not think about, and I actually didn't think about, and it hit us. But I have levelized billing for my electricity bill. That was at our old house. Around here with my electric company, if you've lived in the house longer than a year, you can ask them to give you what they call levelized billing. And what they do is they kind of look at the last 12 months of your bill and they average it out, and that's kind of what you pay each month. And then the next month they look at the 12 months before that. So your bill doesn't stay exactly one amount, but it doesn't fluctuate the up and downs like it does if you didn't have levelized billing. And so instead of paying $180 this month and $350 this month and back down to $250, it kind of levelizes it out, and it says, okay, pay us around $240 a month all year long, up or down a little bit. You may pay $250, you may pay $225 one month, but it kind of levelizes out your billing. And I like that because it just makes my life easier not to always wonder what in the world is my bill going to be this month. So we had been doing that for years at our older home, and worked out great. Okay, when we went to cancel our account and try to get electricity in our name for this property, we found out, and it's probably on my bill, but I just never really looked at it that close, but we found out that there's a little, over time, you're still paying the same amount as you would have paid, but if the levelized amount doesn't really catch up with that, there ends up being a floating amount. And I had a floating amount of $757. it's their system. I don't know why it doesn't level you somehow to where you don't have this floating amount that never got paid, but you do. So I had to write a check for $757 just to get out of that home and be able to get electricity at this home. It's just like I don't know how to explain it. You just have to understand what I'm saying. It's just like an amount that never really got paid because they didn't tell you every month a high enough amount to keep that amount gone. They just let it kind of float over time. And if you have a really low bill one month, well, that amount goes down. If you have a really high bill, that amount might go up. Anyway, I had to cut them a check, though, for $757 just to get out of my electric company and come here. So that's an expense. If you have levelized billing, you may want to check on that. The ramp we had to build for my husband. It was a pretty big ramp and everything. The total cost of it was $2,050. It was $1,700 and something in wood, but we had to go back to the lumber yard 2 or 3 times to buy more boxes of screws that cost $40 a box. I needed some more 2x4s, $139. I had to go get joist hangers one day. It was $25. Anyway, next thing you know, it was $2,050. So, you know, you might say, well, I don't have a handicapped spouse. I don't need a ramp. You will need some type of steps. You will need to do something. The steps they give you are definitely temporary. They're not really that safe. They're not great. You will at some point need a porch or something. So I would go ahead and budget for something. Throw a couple of $1,000s in there for a porch. If you don't need it, well, that's all the better. The property taxes, I had to go ahead and pay property taxes on this land, even though we did get moved in before the end of the year. We moved in December 28th, but I actually got my occupancy permit to move in the middle of December from the permit department. So I ran up there and I was like, I need to file homestead exemption, because if you file before the end of the year, is what I thought, it might make it where you either pay none or very little property tax. And I actually had paperwork from the department that handles that, from the assessor's office, that they sent me when I bought this property. We closed in August, and they sent me a packet telling me to file homestead exemption before December 31st so that I wouldn't have to pay taxes. I didn't go file right then because I knew we were putting the mobile home on it. And so I wanted to just file as a package and file with the mobile home and the land and be done with it, boom, and not have any taxes by the end of the year. Well, when I went to go do that, I found out that, we closed our books October 31st. You have to file next year. You're going to have to pay this year's taxes and file next year. And I said, well, your paperwork said I had till December 31st. And she said, oh, it shouldn't have said that. We closed our books October 31st. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to pay this year. So I had to end up cutting them a check for $235. There again, that might sound like a steal to some people. That's actually just the taxes on our land. That's not including the mobile home. She just told me don't even worry about the mobile home until next year. And then I'll do it as a package next year, which is this year. I actually need to go do that right now. But so I did have that cost of $235 in taxes that I wasn't really planning on because I thought I was going to be filing homestead exemption. The movers ended up costing us $1,212. We had them move us from the storage shed to here. I'm glad we did it because I didn't have to bother people. I already had so much help moving to the storage shed. I hated to tap all of my relatives to help me move me here. So it wasn't an expense I loved paying, but it's done. And we're here. And we got here in a day, and everybody's safe. I didn't have to have people bring trailers and do all kind of stuff, and we just got that done. If you have plenty of family and friends that could help you with that, that wouldn't be a problem for you. This might be a silly one to put on here, but I'm putting it because when the factory trim guys were here trimming out my trailer and all, they told me, if you'll go get light bulbs, we'll put light bulbs in all your overhead lights. I have some can lighting all in my kitchen and all that doesn't actually have light bulbs. It's LED integrated lights that don't have light bulbs. But for all the regular lights in my bathrooms and all, and my bedrooms, I had to go get bulbs. Well, the bulbs cost me 80 bucks at Dollar General. If you haven't priced light bulbs lately, they're not cheap anymore. They're not cheap. And to get as many as I needed, and I actually had to go buy more because I didn't have enough to do my outdoor lights. We forgot to count those when the guy and I were counting that day. But that was 80 bucks just to be able to turn on lights. So I'll factor in all those little things. Another one that I'm going to tell you about is another little thing you don't really think about. The numbers for our house, 4 numbers, and then the lettering for our mailbox. I wrote down $50 because I don't have the receipts. But there again, they cost more than I thought. I could have done something like painting a sign or something, but just to be able to get it done for the inspections and all that stuff, and to get decent lettering on our mailbox so that the driver can see our number, and so that anybody delivering from FedEx and all can clearly see our number. Anyway, those things aren't cheap. I didn't realize. I had no idea how much a little 4-inch number can cost for the side of your house. But anyway, okay. Also, we got hit with interest for them to hold our mobile home longer than we had told them. That was $938. And I like to die when they told me that. I do understand that, though. We lost a contract on our house. They were already holding this mobile home for us, and we had told them about a prospective closing date at the end of September. Well, that had to be canceled because of losing the buyers for the house. So when we got new buyers, the closing date wasn't until the end of October. So I had to tell the people, can you hold it another month? And they could if I paid the interest. It's almost as if we had bought the trailer and financed it, and I was paying a month of interest or something. And I was like, $900 for y'all to hold it for another month? I had put a $500 deposit down for them to hold it to begin with, but that $500 was going to be credited to our sale price. So it was really just money out of my pocket right then, but it was coming off on the back end, so it didn't really bother me. But this $900 was going to be just interest. It wasn't coming off my sale price. And at first I was kind of like, oh man, that's a lot of money. But going back to what I told you about the cost that the other places were quoting me, I needed to go ahead and just make sure that this mobile home stayed available for us and was ready in 30 more days when we needed to close. So I just paid it, and I'll get over it. We needed to make sure that when we did close on our house, that our mobile home was still there. I didn't want to get to the point of having to find another mobile home or wait for one to get custom built at the factory and sent to my place, or go to another place, because if I ended up having to go to another place to get one, I didn't know if I could get it at the same price based on the experiences I'd had before. So I just sucked it up, buttercup, and paid the $938. And they held the trailer for us, and it was a seamless transition. When we closed on our home a few days later, I was right there, and we just got the trailer, and it was done. And I didn't have to go out shopping anymore, so it was okay. Now, those are just some expenses, but they added up to $6,831 for all these miscellaneous expenses that we had to do for our situation. If you add that $6,831 to the $11,659 of basic essentials that we had to do, we are out $18,490. That's what it cost us to actually move into this house and have it the way we needed for our storage, our dogs, our ramp, our taxes being paid on it for 2022, everything, being able to turn lights on, everything. It was $18,490. So taking that into consideration, if you just wanted to, and I'm just doing this, you're never going to get that money back dollar for dollar, theoretically, if you was to go to sale probably right now, But if you add that $18,490 to what we paid for the trailer and the land, which was $220,924, we are totally into this place for $239,415. I'm okay with it. It's all relative in this world. if you were to tell me right now, Lainey, here's a check for $239,415, go find y'all a place to live. I could find somewhere. Don't get me wrong. I could find somewhere. But I would not be living in as comfortable and as a good situation as I am now. I don't think it would be in a nice location as I have now. It would easily buy me a small house in a crowded subdivision. I don't want that. So it's all relative. For $239,415, we completely have it set up. We're ready to go. We're living here. The things I'm working on now are just finishing out some of that on the ramp, but I already have the boards out here for it. And I'm working on planning my yard and my gardens and just the living of being here. I'm not having to spend the next year looking at my yard with no gardens while I'm remodeling or building. That's just the way I feel. That's my situation. I'm gonna throw out some questions. I know this video is long. I don't think I've ever done one over an hour, and I apologize. But I'm gonna throw out some of these questions, and it's basic. It's just basic stuff. Just to make sure that you kind of think about a few things, you know, before you jump into doing all this. I wrote down, might seem silly, but lunches and drinks and snacks that you may have to buy for people helping you and stuff. That can add up. If somebody comes to your house and spends half a day helping you do something, feed them, buy them lunch, buy them a drink, go get them an icy Coke at the store. Go get them something, you know, or cook for them, but you still have to buy those ingredients to make sandwiches and bring a sandwich tray out here and do something. But if people are coming to help you, you need to show some hospitality. Figure that in. Don't ever act like that is, oh, I don't want to spend money because I'm saving money and they can bring their own drinks. No, if they're coming to help you, this may sound like a lady thing to say, but, you know, feed them. Give them something to drink. Have something out there for them. And so there's a store down the road that sells pre-made pulled pork sandwiches at lunchtime and all. And believe me, I bought a lot of pulled pork sandwiches for different people. So, and I don't regret it because everybody was really good to me. I wrote on here that I had several debits to hardware stores that aren't in these figures because I didn't have the receipts and I couldn't remember what it was for. But I can guarantee it was for some things out here. So always kind of add other little miscellaneous figure to your budget because you're going to run to that hardware store 150 times. So you're going to $25 yourself to death if you don't kind of budget for that. And there again, you can run into hardware stores, you're running down the road to get a sandwich for your workers or whatever. Figure your gas is going to go up. Our gas bill definitely was up because my husband and I were having, even if it was storming, even if we didn't need to be out here to help anybody or to do anything, we had to come up here to feed our dogs. And we were doing it twice a day sometimes. So twice a day we were driving 45 miles or so to get up here to feed the dogs. Then we were doing it to meet other people too. And if I needed to leave here and go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot or a Ace Hardware, I was doing that too. Our gas bill was almost $400 there for a few months. I look for it now to go down a whole lot because we're not even really going anywhere now that we're living here. But go ahead and plan on the fact that you're going to spend more gas and you may be grabbing you a drink while you're at the store or doing whatever. So figure all that out. Just go ahead and add it in because you don't want later on to not be able to pay an electric bill or something because you didn't add in all these other costs. None of the figures I gave you included anything decorative, and that might not be necessities, but believe me, at some point you're going to want something. You're going to want a new mattress. You're going to want an upgraded bed for one of your kids' rooms or something. So if you can, if you can't thrift it or get it some other way, just kind of maybe add in there a little bit for decorative items, for a comforter or something. A lot of people are selling so much stuff to fund being able to get debt-free and get into a new place that you may end up getting to that new place and realizing, oh crud, I sold this and I sold that and now I need it back. There may be things you sold out of your shed and stuff like that to fund your move, and now you really need them back because you need them for the work you're doing on your new homestead. So just try to kind of budget miscellaneous things in there. If you're buying vacant land, is it going to need to be mowed or bush hogged while you're not living there? How are you going to do that? Are you going to have to pay somebody to do that? Are you going to be able to do it yourself? There's gas, more time, diesel, whatever it takes, so think about that. It's lovely to buy a big 20 acres of pasture, but how is that pasture going to be taken care of until you're on site? And when you do get on site, do you need a tractor? Do you need a bush hog implement for that tractor? Do you need a disc, a hiller? What do you need to be able to do what you need to do on that property? Do you need tillers? Even just hand tools? Do you have them all? There's things you're going to need to get set up and be able to work on that property, be able to take care of that property. Do you have a lawnmower? Did you sell your lawnmower so that you could fund the move and now you need something to mow with? Things you need to think about. Do you need just a little push mower to help out around a certain area and then a tractor that'll do the rest? All kind of things to think about. People that are homesteading, I just had a dog pen that, that whole system cost me $600, but do you have structures that you're going to need to put animals in? Are you going to need a barn or lean-tos or something like that, sheds to be able to house animals, chicken coops? Are you going to need fencing? What's all that going to cost? Those are the things that can eat you alive and that can crash your dream if you really don't budget for them. Maybe you can't budget for all of it up front. Maybe that's not doable, but you need to at least know what it might cost later that's going to come out of your paycheck or something like that. And that's another thing. Prices are not going down. So if you don't budget for something, if you don't plan for something, if you don't get it as soon as you can at today's prices, you don't really know what it's going to cost later on. But your energy and your labor to procure it later on, it's going to have to be maybe 1.5 times or 2 times what your energy and labor would be to procure it now. Are you going to have that much energy and labor time later to work to get fencing, or work to get a barn, when maybe had you on the front end budgeted it, thought about it, cut something here so that you could fund this, cut something there so that you could fund this? If you kind of, the time you could spend at your kitchen table planning a lot of this can pay you back in the end. And don't be afraid to just stop and to hold off. Don't put a contract on land or anything till you investigate what it costs. I would love to live on the backside of 40 acres and be way off the highway, but what does it cost for that driveway? What does it cost to run electricity back there? What does it cost? If you're completely off grid, you might not have those exact costs, but you're going to have some costs. You're going to have costs. Solar's not cheap. Water wells are not cheap. You're going to have some cost. Do you need a pond dug? Are you going to need a pond for cows or animals? What's that going to cost? Do you have the equipment to do it yourself? If you can do it, if you're capable of doing it, but you don't have the equipment, what does it cost to rent that equipment? All these kind of things, just ask yourself. And another thing, and maybe this might be my last thing I say, are you considered rural? I'm glad I'm kind of rural. You probably want to be rural. That's why you're leaving the city and everything. However, when a contractor considers you rural, they upcharge you sometimes. When you call somewhere and you want them to deliver something and they say, where do you live? And you tell them, your delivery fee might just go sky high. Rural sometimes is a good thing, and sometimes it can cost you some more money. And I'm saying that specifically because we had a ping in our window, of our upstairs window at our house we were selling. It was a double pane window, and the ping, the little hole, was just in the outer pane. It didn't affect any air coming into the bedroom or anything. I guess a rock hit it when we were mowing somehow or something. It was a second floor, but anyway. So the people said something about it and they wanted me to fix it. Well, I found out that just buying a brand new sash, the window company was 15 weeks out being able to provide a sash, and it was going to be expensive anyway. So I called to see if I could just get someone to fix the glass, to replace the glass pane. Well, I forget what the glass pane was actually going to cost me, but the man was going to cost me $150 to come to my house to measure. Then later on, he was going to go back to Baton Rouge to do it. And then to come back and install it later, he was going to charge me another $150. And he apologized. He just said, you live so far out. He said, it's going to take me 45 minutes to an hour to come through Baton Rouge traffic now to get to you. And then do it again 2 weeks later. He said, with things the way they are, I have to charge a lot of money for my time and my gas. He said, because for every hour I'm heading your way and doing your job and then heading back, he said, which he's right. If it took him an hour and then it took him an hour to go, that's 2 hours of his time that he could be at his shop working on something else and then to do it again later. But anyway, so it was going to cost me $300 for this man, and there wasn't very many of them willing to do it, that would come up here and deal with with a one little job, my second floor window. So I ended up not doing it. I just said, forget it. The people had asked me if I would let them have my den rug. So I ended up just telling them, keep the rug and just let the window be if that's okay. And they said that's fine. They would take the rug. So there's always a way to negotiate something. So I let them keep my den rug. I didn't have to fool with it. But my point being is, because of where I lived, I was getting upcharged and taken to the cleaners. That can happen a lot when if you're asking somebody to come trim trees, if you're asking somebody to come bring equipment to your place to do something, and they find out you live an hour and a half away, they'll upcharge you sometimes. So talk to people, get a clear understanding of whether they're going to do that or not, and get price. That's all I can really give you right now. Probably could talk about a lot of things. This is just what we went through. We're not technically homesteading, so I'm not anticipating just more money going out the door. I'm doing gardening. I have a lot of my seeds now. I don't need any more seeds. I have through this time of this last couple of years, getting Camp Joy Farm set up and everything, I have a lot of the things I need. So my costs have stabilized. My debt has, as far as monthly bills, has stabilized. Where I live now, this is another question I can throw out, I guess. Where I live now has fiber optics running down the highway, and I have easy access to Wi-Fi and everything, which we got set up the other day. And those bills for me are going to come down a lot. Like I'm going to be saving about $300 a month. Where you live on that 40 acres out in the country, if you buy something like that, can you get Wi-Fi? I had trouble getting it where I lived before, and I was having to pay $149 a month for a Nomad router from the company Nomad Internet. What are you going to have to pay for internet? Look at all those things. What are you going to have to pay if you want it? But if you're doing YouTube channels or you want to watch things and all, you're going to need some type of Wi-Fi or internet. So think about those things. I wish everybody the best of luck. I hope that you have some input from this video. I feel like I've made myself a little vulnerable, giving you the exact cost of what we paid, because you kind of open yourself up to, golly, you should have done this or you should have done that. You have to just do the best you can in this world. I'm doing the best I can with the data I have, the information I have, with throwing in our situation. And we've lived and learned before. We've already built 2 houses before this. So I kind of know how things work. I know how timelines can stretch, and we just wanted to be home. We wanted to have a home within a few months to where Richard could relax and be comfortable, to where I could have just enough land that I needed to be able to do what I want to do, but not so much that it overwhelms me. And I feel like we got that. We were blessed to find this place. We were blessed to get a good price on what we think is a good trailer, mobile home. And we're very, very thankful. And every time I'm in my kitchen cooking or washing dishes and looking out that window that I have right above my sink, and I'm in awe, really. We're just so blessed and so grateful. It's all worked out, and it'll all work out for you too. It will. Just slow down, think about things, do a lot of praying, find out where God wants you, and you'll get there. You'll get there. This is Lainey from Hilltop Home Place. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. If you're still here after an hour and a half, you're doing really good, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day. Bye-bye.